Good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of UAE School Leaders with your host, Mohsin. Please subscribe to the channel and show your support. In today's episode, we have Miss Zen, Mr. Tim, and Mr. Roddy. We will be discussing what a teacher should do when looking for a role in UAE. What are the requirements when applying for a teaching position? How should one be prepared for an interview? And what is the work-life balance in the UAE? Schools in the UAE attract a large number of overseas teachers due to the tax-free salary, sunny weather, and generally a better lifestyle. So let me start by asking Miss Zen, what should a teacher do when looking for a role in the UAE?
Hi, Mohsen. Thank you for inviting us today. So it's very important that when a teacher is looking for a job in the Middle East or the UAE, they actually have a look at the website of the school to make sure that the mission, the vision, and the ethos of the school actually align with what they're looking for in a school. There are sites available where there's information about inspection reports, about the principal, the number of students, such as which school advisor. But the best channel for you to actually have a look at is the school social media and the website. On there, there'll be information about the leadership team, there'll be inspection reports, there'll be some information about the student body, and you'll be able to find out a lot of information in terms of what you need before you join. What you can also do is actually reach out to people that are working in the school and actually connect with somebody who's working at the school. They're the best people to advise you in what's actually going on in the school at this moment in time and where the school is actually going in the future. And ask questions and make an informed decision before you actually make a choice on which school you will be joining.
Being able to reach out to people who are actually working at the school, hopefully principals and HR departments are willing to share people's details who work at the school. You're traveling thousands of miles to a school you probably don't really know. If you can be put in touch with somebody who is working there and living the lifestyle, it brings it to life so much more.
I would also add in that schools are probably better at promoting themselves to prospective parents than they may be to prospective staff. So if you can get your hands on the school prospectus, there's some really good information there, because obviously they're trying to explain exactly what this school is like, and you probably get that off a school website. It should be easily available. The only other thing I would probably add is there's quite a lot of review sites. There's a lot of things get posted in social media, and I think it's just human nature that quite often it's the noisy minority, and a bad review or an indifferent review, it could actually be more of a reflection on the actual individual than necessarily than on the school itself. So I think you have to take a little bit of a pinch of salt with any reviews that are coming, because they might not be the best way to make a judgment whether it's good or bad.
Mr. Roddy, what are the requirements when applying for a teaching position?
Well, the very first thing I would say is that the CV is still a very important document. So, it's the first connection you'll really have with the school, finding out who you are. So it is still important to spend a bit of time in the CV and make simple things. There's plenty of forums on CV tips and advice elsewhere. So I won't get into too much detail, but just to emphasise, the CV is very important. Also to follow the instructions. Different schools, some want maybe application forms. Don't think of it as a chore. They've asked you to do it, And if there's anything, other information, follow the information that's been requested. And another general bit of advice is keep applying. Don't be afraid to give up. We often feel that people get disheartened quite easily. It's a very competitive market in the UAE, probably more competitive than anywhere else, because it's such a desirable place to live and work. So you really have to be determined and have that approach, and not to be too disheartened if not everything comes out perfectly for you.
The vast majority of international schools require you to be a qualified teacher. So you need to have a PGCE and a bachelor degree as standard. There are schools which do take candidates that do not have a formal teaching degree. Sometimes you would need a certain amount of experience. Often what is quoted is 2 years post-qualifying experience. That doesn't necessarily go across the board. So there are schools that take NQTs. There are schools that can put you through your NQT year. There are schools that will look for 1 year's qualification as a minimum. The majority would say 2 years as a minimum.
So applying for the job is just the first step of actually, of the process of the move. You actually have to get approval by the regulator once you join. Now, Dubai is quite flexible in terms of as long as you've got a degree, you may be accepted. A lot of schools now require a PGCE because with the teacher license that's been brought in, you need to have a teaching qualification. So before you could join if you had, a degree and 2 years experience. Now you need a teaching qualification. And what you have to be aware of is if you have an IPGCE, the ministry may not accept. So it has to be a PGCE that's been taken. It's a classroom-based PGCE and 2 years experience before you join. Now, Dubai is quite flexible in terms of which degree you have, but ADECT is a little bit more strict in terms of the requirements. So if you have a law degree, for instance, and a PGCE, you won't be able to join an ADECT school. So you have to just check with the school before you apply, check the requirements and make sure that you actually meet those requirements, and be aware of the teacher license as well, because once you join the school, you will have to, in Dubai, take the 6 mandatory courses. And if you're in any of the other Emirates, you have to then apply for a teacher license with the Ministry of Education.
The other thing I was going to add is there is an extra layer of authority approval that's required, that's often referred to as the pre-employment check. This can apply maybe more for government appointments, and it's more to do with probably immigration than, say, specifically the education side. So I think some people maybe have to be aware that it isn't completely done and dusted until that approval has really been given. And that's usually, I believe it's like a third party government agency that deal with that side of things. So that's something else that could go wrong. But I think some parts of the UAE have been stricter about that than others.
Mr. Tim, how should one be prepared for an interview, and do you have any interview tips to share?
I think the first thing is to make sure that this is the right decision for you. Speak to family, speak to friends, speak to people already out in the UAE, Middle East, etc., to get a real understanding of how life and work are out there and the differences that you would expect. Clearly, looking at the school website is absolutely fundamental. You will find some websites are full of great information, others maybe not so. If you can get any information from the interviewer, so if it's the principal or a head of department or a senior leader, to ask them if there's anything that you can prepare beforehand, that's always a good tip. I think looking at the inspection reports are obviously key. Social media, as Roddy mentioned, it's important to have a look, but take it with a pinch of salt, because there are often very good schools that have bad reviews from teachers that have been scorned. In terms of what is likely to come up in an interview, it's the same as any school. It's in the UK or wherever it may be. It depends on the individual school. There are certain things that are fundamentals, such as safeguarding, how you ensure pupil progress, teaching and learning, how you work alongside colleagues, but making the move abroad, I'd say hopefully those things are fairly drilled into teachers already, so they should be able to give good answers. But what principals or whoever's doing the interview want to hear are why you want to make the move, which is fundamental, because it does nobody any good to hire somebody for 3 months and they decide it's not for them. The differences that they should expect in working in a different country, in a different culture, because they are independent schools, often there is potentially more pressure from parents than you would expect in a mainstream British school. So how you would deal with that, which is, essentially follow the school policy, and if you don't feel comfortable at any point, escalate it to the relevant member of staff. Differentiation is absolutely key. But I don't think, apart from those things, I don't think that there's any fundamental differences to what you would expect in a UK interview.
One of the things that we do with our candidates before we send them to an interview is help them prepare. And my first advice to candidates would be, first of all, make sure that the mode of interview that you're using is working, okay? Secondly, prepare for this interview as if it's a face-to-face interview. Don't sit there in your pajamas, looking scruffy. Wear a tie, wear a shirt, wear a blazer. Make sure that you're dressed for the occasion, because first impressions matter. If you're sitting there and you're not well prepared, you're not going to get the job. It's as simple as that, because the school is looking for someone who will enhance what they already have. They don't want somebody who will not align to their own values, their own mission, their own ethos. And we're dealing with, particularly we're dealing with private schools. So the parents have a certain level of expectation on the staff. They have to behave a certain way. They have to look a certain way. So research about private schools before you actually go for that interview. Another key recommendation that I would make would be to make sure that you have read about the principal, about the senior leadership, because they are the ones that will be interviewing you, and they will be the ones that will be making that decision. And you need to ultimately make a connection with them so they welcome you into their school. Because nobody interviews not to get the job. Everyone interviews to get the job. So make sure that you're well equipped to impress them and make sure that they know that you're the right candidate for the job.
I would very much echo what Ms. Sen had said about the mode of interview. We've actually prepared a recent blog. I think there'll be a link at the end of the podcast to our website. People will find that blog. Practical tips on video interviews, which I think are the only interviews that are probably happening right now. So people can check that out. The other thing I mentioned about CV earlier, I find that the international schools tend to follow quite a traditional style of interview, and will probably go through the CV. So make sure you've got this copy that you sent them in front of you, and read through beforehand so you know what you said, and you can back that up with examples of some of the work that you've done. But I would even suggest being prepared that you might be asked a very simple but very open question on something like, what kind of teacher are you?
Interesting. Thank you so much there. Miss Zen, so what are the steps from the point of accepting an offer from a school to arriving in the UAE?
So the school will usually send you a list of their requirements. It's basically, they ask for your attested and notarized degree, marriage certificate, birth certificate, and any other paperwork that might be relevant to your visa. So initially what you need to do is get the document notarized by a solicitor, and then you need to actually get it equalized and get a seal from the Foreign Affairs Department in whatever country you live in. But I'm actually talking about the UK process at the moment. So from the Foreign Affairs Department, you need to get a stamp. The easiest way to do this is actually to engage an agency. We have a partner that we work with in the UK who does the whole process, and they actually then send the documents to you. They will DHL out the attested documentation to you so you can receive them at your school.
As soon as you've accepted the offer, obviously sending back the signed offer letter, you need to approach a solicitor, a local solicitor, to attest your documents. So depending on your situation, if you are single with no dependents, it would be your bachelor degree and your PGCE or your Bachelor of Education. If you have dependents, it would be marriage certificate and children's birth certificate. What is important is I've seen many examples of people essentially being ripped off in the nicest possible way by solicitors firms in terms of costs. Once you've received that, basically they'll take a photocopy of those documents, stamp it, sign it. Then you need to send it to the Foreign Commonwealth Office in Milton Keynes, who will do exactly the same to basically say that all of the documents are bona fide, genuine. They will send it back to you. Then you send it off to the UAE embassy in London, who do exactly the same process and send it back to you. So it sounds like a long-winded process. Generally speaking, it can be done in 2 weeks. However, we've had many people that have had an interview on the Monday and flown out on the Thursday. So the absolutely vital thing is to get the solicitor's signature and stamp before you fly. You can do the rest when you're out in the UAE. It just makes it a bit more difficult.
We're the same in that we would encourage people to do it themselves, because it is not as complicated as it seems. And a lot of people moving abroad don't have a lot of money to throw around and waste. And yes, people can do it really fairly simply. We have a document we send teachers when they get an offer that outlines these 3 stages that Tim described. So I think that's spot on. A quick thing about passport. If your passport's got less than 9 months, get a new one. Any period that you've still got left over will be added on to, in a UK passport case, the 10 years. But you'll not be able to travel if you've got less than 6 months. And similarly, if it's less than 6 months by the time you finish your first academic year, then that could cause you issues as well. So best to get the passport well up to date with loads of time left. Referees, to mention very quickly, contact your referees. You don't always get referees get contacted before you get made the offer. Maybe in the UK, for example, people might be used to the referees getting contacted even before they have the interview. That doesn't tend to happen that way around internationally. But make sure your referees are on board, and sometimes you have to chase them up because they might not send the references. Police reports as well. There are different ways of doing that. Again, people can usually manage to do that themselves. It's a developing position on that. I mean, some of the British international schools and COBIS, if there are members of COBIS, have their own method that's maybe more aligned to ACRO now than the local police force, for example. But really, to emphasise again, follow the instructions that either your agency are giving you or the school itself directly. Follow. You have to do absolutely everything that they ask you to do. Even if it seems long-winded or unnecessary to you, they're not asking you to do unnecessary things. So just keep following every single thing and read and really understand what you're being asked to do, because it's all very, very important. It's not just about getting a new job. It's about emigrating.
Great. Finally, so Ms. Zen, what is the work-life balance like in the UAE for a teacher?
Okay, so the work-life balance is great. When teachers come over to the UAE, they're really happy with the lifestyle that they have here. However, one point that I want to make is it's great, it's very glitzy, it's very glamorous when you move out to the UAE, but be financially responsible when you come out. It's easy to get carried away, it's easy to get loans, get nice cars, and people find themselves often in debt. So be very financially responsible when you come out. There's lots of time in the day. School starts earlier, it finishes a little bit earlier than what it does in the UK. The sun's shining. You can go to the beach on the weekend. You can go in the evening. So it's a really, really nice work-life balance. And it's a good place. It's a lovely place to live. People are friendly. Everyone's helpful. It's very, very safe. There's not much crime going on. So it's a really nice, safe place to live. Just be financially responsible when you come out.
I generally hear that it's a better work-life balance than in the UK. There are far less demands than are expected over here. However, saying that, no principal wants to hear, and this is going back to interview, no principal wants to hear or wants to think that a prospective teacher is coming out for a 2-year holiday in the sun. You need to be professional. You're going out there as a teacher. You are going out there to do a job. Yes, you probably won't be marking until 8, 9 at night, as many people would do over here, but you need to take your job seriously.
Well, the first thing I would say is that of the teachers who are already in the UAE, the great majority want to find another job in the UAE. They don't want to leave. So I think that says a lot. What I would say for people that will be new coming into the UAE, 90% of the people or our applicants say they want to go to Dubai, and in some cases only Dubai. Well, the UAE is a relatively small country, and each of the different emirates has got pros and cons. So we very often have to sort of explain to people that they need to have a fairly open mind, and that in actual fact, if they were, for example, if they were going with family, they may find that one of the other emirates suits them far better. So not to be too obsessed with the word Dubai is one bit of advice I would give. And really, everywhere in the UAE is very safe, very easy to live, very lucky that people going to the Middle East used to get paid a lot of money because it was a hardship. It's certainly not a hardship now.
If a teacher is coming out and they're single, they have to be very careful that they build a network around them of people that will become their family, because it can be lonely as well. Often people have left because they feel depressed or they're missing family. So make sure when you come out, you come with an open mindset to embrace those in your community and make them your family when you're out here.
So I am the international recruitment manager for a education recruitment firm called Elementor, and we specialise in not only UK recruitment, but UAE recruitment. We also have a behaviour management arm of the business. So not only do we offer that to UK and UAE schools, but we also offer it to prospective teachers who are going into new roles, whether it's in the UK or the UAE.
Hi, I'm Roddy Hammond. I'm the founder and the CEO of World Teachers Recruitment. We're a UK-based agency set up over 10 years ago now. So we've got loads of experience in helping teachers relocate, mainly to the Middle East. And even within the Middle East, it's mainly been the UAE actually. But we would like to help people come up with, provide them with different opportunities to give them options about developing their teaching career overseas, and really working closely with the schools to make sure that both parties get a good result.
we support teachers and school leaders to move internationally into the Middle East and help them to find a job in the right school for them. We support schools to find the right candidates, and we also provide training, which is online and face-to-face. We're based in the UAE and the UK. My name's Zen Khan, and I'm the managing partner and founder of Education First and Zen Professional Development.
All right. Thank you so much to our lovely guests for joining me today. It has been an absolute pleasure. Please make sure you share this video, like and subscribe to the channel. And until next time, goodbye. Thank you.